Side 2 begins with Childhood's End, written by guitarist David Gilmour and named after the novel by the author of 2001: A Space Odyssey, Arthur C. Clarke, even if any connections between the song and book are otherwise loose, as well as the Valley film it was supposed to be in for that matter. Like with the title song at the very beginning and first side of the album, this too starts with a really slow fade in of what sounds like a Hammond organ and a VCS3 synthesizer, as well as a tick-tock sound, very similar to what we'd hear in a later and more well-known song, Time. A precursor, if you will. It then turns into another groovy, riffing rock piece with both acoustic and electric guitars playing over a bit of bass from Roger Waters and drums by Nick Mason. David's lyrics seem to mimic Roger's own songwriting style to a bit of an extent, delving of course into some existentialism, especially with the line of "Childhood's end, your fantasies merge with harsh realities. As we grow older, our childlike dreams and wishes are abrupted by the real world, and they soon start to meld and fuse." And what David Gilmour penn's song would be complete without at least one distinct sounding guitar solo from him. Any solo of his are vibrant and head bob worthy, and this is certainly no exception. Combine it with a bit more of that sweet Hammond organ from keyboardist Richard Wright, giving this a bit of a grainy gospel layer to it, and you're in for an underrated solo and an underrated Pink Floyd song. In fact, this would be the last Pink Floyd song to have David as the sole writer for about 15 years until a momentary lapse of reason. Any in between would have him either be credited alongside, say, Richard Wright and or Roger Waters, or mostly entirely by Roger himself, lyrics and music alike. While his contributions within material after this album are of course just as essential as the other key members, I think it's good that he'd at least get the chance to make a complete composition of his very own. The only other Pink Floyd tracks that I can recall that David wrote entirely by himself were a Spanish piece from the Moore soundtrack, The Narrow Way from Ummagumma, and Fat Old Son from Atom Heart Mother. On the opposite contrast, we have Roger Waters' own song, Free Fall, the only single of Obscured by Clouds, beginning right away with a seemingly standard count-in from 1 to 4 that you might hear some bands say just before playing a song. However, this one emphasizes the 3 part and makes it sound like free, as a little obvious pun and play on words, and hence the very name of the song itself. However, beneath the otherwise lightheartedness of the folky, electroacoustic music lay some pretty grim and morbid lyrics, even if it's all still sung in a very bright and happy manner by Waters himself. The memories of a man in his old age are the deeds of a man in his prime, referring to someone looking back after so many years or even decades and looking at what he had achieved and accomplished in his younger years. You shuffle in gloom in the sick room and talk to yourself as you die, clearly meaning how he's on his deathbed, shorter of breath and one day closer to death. It implies on the stresses of the going-ons in concerts with the line of "So all aboard for the American tour, and maybe you'll make it to the top," plus even acknowledges the death of Roger's own father in the Second World War, with "You're the angel of death, and I'm the dead man's son." Imagine him building a wall after that. It's basically like a mix between 2 previous songs from Roger, Corporal Clegg from Saucer Full of Secrets with its content, and Saint-Tropez from Medal with its music, plus a bit of the Monty Python song Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, in both its kind of a lyrical style and its more bright light lyrics. or music actually. Roger would of course continue to explore such similar themes in many of the Floyd songs and albums that would come afterwards, some of which would include The Final Cut and The Wall. And we have, of course, another guitar solo from good old David Gilmour, as usual. Bit reminiscent of Eric Clapton or Cream this time around. For me personally, to be honest, I think it's when Roger combines happy and optimistic music with cynical and depressing lyrics is one thing that he's best at. In my opinion at least. It's both upbeat and a downer, and I like it for that. This is a free forward thinking song. Yeah, I'll let up myself on for that one. We then come to the penultimate track, simply titled Stay. A piano-centric ballad written between Rick, who composed the music and takes on the lead vocals, and Roger, who wrote the lyrics as usual. Like with Rick's own song, Summer 68 from Atom Heart Mother, this too deals with him becoming attracted to a particular groupie after having a little one-night stand with her, even if he doesn't know or even remember her own name. I'll give Richard right this. Between those two songs in particular, he'd probably treat such women somewhat politely, which may be more than I could say for other individual people. Music-wise, it kind of feels like a way for Pink Floyd to emulate Elton John in his style at the time, specifically his famous track, Your Song. Not exactly a rip-off per se, but still having a similar mood and tone, as well as being a romantic love song. The Midnight Blue Burning Gold chorus is of course quite bittersweet sounding, while still sounding uplifting in a way. And Davis' distorted solo is a little bit sweet and cute. It may not be a prog rock song, but it is a soft rock song. Maybe if you give it a chance, it might stay with you. And you'll actually remember its simple 4-letter one-word title. Better than Richard actually remember the name of a groupie. And on a side note, upon listening to and analysing the second track of Obscure by Clouds, one might wonder what these songs have connected to the La Vallée film that it's meant to be a soundtrack to. Well, any guess of yours is likely as good as mine, really. And so our album closes out with the fittingly titled Absolutely Curtains. An instrumental finale and the other one of two songs to have all four members credited in writing it. Just seconds shy of 6 minutes, this piece features some droning synths, swelling cymbals and rolling drums, much like what we'd hear in Shine On You Crazy Diamond, as well as the titular track of A Source of Secrets. And this goes on for most of the song, if I can even call it that, until near the ending where it all fades away and we only hear some rather otherworldly chanting from the Mapuga tribe, whom we see in La Vallée, giving this song a very ethnical feel that definitely fits the film it was based on, and something we don't entirely hear of often from Pink Floyd. And when all that gospel-like chanting come to a sudden and seizing halt, leaving only silence as the song and the album completely ends, one could imagine hearing a particular heartbeat sound fading in, or at least I would. But again, that would be for another time. As for now though, this album is okay. Nothing too special, just okay. Much like Medal and Atom Heart Mother, it's something of a transitional album. The band trying to figure out what kind of style and direction they really want to strive for, especially long after Syd Barrett's departure at that point. Not to mention, being a film soundtrack, this was more or less made as a side project, just something to get out of the way while they work on their actual big album, both live and in the studio. But even with all that, this is by no means a bad album. One would really have to be really hard pressed to consider any album by Pink Floyd bad in any way. Maybe some not as good and memorable as others. In the case of this one though, at best or worst, probably average and a tiny bit rushed, but some of the songs here are still really enjoyable. The title track, Burning Bridges, Gold It's in There, and Freeform come to mind, of course. So, all in all, if you're curious about this album, do feel free to check it out for yourselves. Next time, we celebrate the 50th anniversary of another classic album, and one from a particular late great singer, whom I may have discussed long ago. He's waiting in the sky, and would like to come and meet us, but he thinks that he could blow our minds.